we go. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another Fish the Moment live stream. Today, we have our special guest, Tyler Anderson from Tyler's Real Fishing, and we're going to be talking about catching big bass on your lake. Tyler just did a really cool series on his YouTube channel where we caught 14-pounder, which is pretty incredible, and we wanted to kind of just share a little bit of how that went down and hopefully give you guys some tips on how you can replicate, maybe not a 14-pounder, but catch the biggest fish that's in your lake. I know some people, you may only have an 8-pounder as your biggest fish, but how do you target that caliber fish? So, Tyler, thanks for joining me tonight.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. We've talked for years and years and talked about collaborating, and I guess this is our first little foray into our collaboration. So happy to be here.
Man, thanks again for joining. We're going to get into all the juice. Hopefully, I'll be able to pull out all the information. I know that you might not want to give up the exact spot, the exact technique, but I'm going to do my best, guys, to get all the juice out of Tyler. So you guys will come away with some information you can take to the lake and hopefully catch some fish with. And before we get into that, got to start out, obviously, with every podcast with our sponsors. Huge shout out to the main sponsors of the Fish the Moment live stream. First, Bridgeford Foods. Every week, guys, we do a Bridgeford beef jerky giveaway. Tyler, we give 12 packs of Bridgeford beef jerky out to one lucky viewer, and we actually gave one out last week. And this week, we're going to do another giveaway, and we basically do it based on the comments of this video. So whatever comment we think is good, interesting, we're going to pick somebody about halfway through the stream. If there's just something that's funny, something that you like, call them out. And hey, if you just remember, you can call out the winner of this week's Bridgeford beef jerky giveaway. If not, I'll pick them up. And
Cool.
Bridgeford, guys, is a great beef jerky to take on the lake, great snack. I hear also if you eat this, you have a higher chance of catching a 10-pound plus bass. You didn't hear that from me. That was Randy's sage wisdom, but just, maybe something to check out if you're really struggling. So, huge shout out to Bridgeford there. I need to send you some packs before that trip. That was the thing. You could have called him day one if you had that brief beef jerky.
I had no clue, man.
Good deal. And then one other shout out to give guys is to our other main sponsor, the Bass Tank. Bass Tank, guys, is out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they are the leaders in bass fishing electronics installation, whether it's for bass, crappie, catfish, walleye, whatever you guys are interested in catching. If you need electronics for it, the Bass Tank is the place to go. They have great deals right now on Garmin LiveScope, which is something that Tyler is very familiar with, and we'll probably get into that a little bit here. One of the contributing factors of his 14-pounder. And if you guys are interested in the Garmin LiveScope from what you hear on this stream, or if you, for whatever reason, just haven't pulled the trigger yet, definitely head over to the Bass Tank and check out the sale they have on the EchoMap UHD 93SV. You can get the unit plus the LiveScope transducer for $2,200 plus a mail-in rebate that gets it all down to about $2,000. So great little package right there. You can contact them at thebasstank.com or just give them a call at their number 1-918-509-7864. Again, that's 918-509-7864. Okay, that gets all the initial stuff out of the way. So now let's just jump into it. And I want to start, Tyler, by having you describe that fish catch. Not getting all the details ever, but just what was it like? What was the moment? We saw it in your video, but obviously I want to get your kind of take on it now that you've had some time to process.
Yeah, for sure. It was, honestly, I'll talk about both the catch and the feeling of holding it, but the whole thing is surreal. Of course, a fish of that size, you don't really understand how big it is until you have it in your hands. And so before going, again, my goal for this series was to catch a 10-pounder, just hardcore big bass fishing for 10 days. So it was going to start with live scoping, then it was going to go to big swim baits, and then bed fishing for 2 days. And got it done on the second day. So if anybody hasn't watched it, go after this live stream. And it's a really cool story. And we'll talk about the Share Longer program, I'm sure, here at the end of the live stream. But the first thing that I really noticed and stuck out to me as I was editing was how long it took to turn the fish where it wasn't beating me, I was beating it. And you set the hook, and immediately on most fish, maybe 2 or 3 seconds is the max of when they are in control, and then you're usually water skiing them on the top of the water. But this fish set the hook, and it almost immediately realizes, uh-oh, I'm hooked. And you can see my rod. It's a 7'11" heavy Alabama rig rod. You can see it be pulled, and for at least like 7-8 seconds, it was in control, which for bass fishing is a lot. I know people that might fish saltwater for redfish or tuna. I mean, you're turned for a lot longer. But for a bass, 7-8 seconds is a long time. And then it took me on one more big run. I think as soon as it saw the boat, because it was basically a totally vertical one, and I should have lost it there. I'm going to have a video coming out on my channel soon detailing frame by frame what went on in this catch. But I should have lost that fish because I couldn't open the button fast enough to let line out, and luckily it had the hooks deep enough. So that was what I first noticed. And then of course there was something on live scope we can talk about that I noticed about the fish and the fish that were a part of that school as well. So just a really cool experience getting it in the net. I'm glad it was an Alabama rig because, like I said, in 20-pound line, because it would have broken me off if I hadn't had that heavy of a setup for sure. Because a 14-pounder fights very hard until they get to the top of the water. And then I think she was basically toast in terms of her energy. Like there wasn't a whole lot of energy left in her, and she kind of walloped over into my net, which was great. And then put her in the live well. She wouldn't fit in one side, and Skeeter has a pretty big live well. I've got the FXR 21, so luckily I took the screws out so she could swim freely or really fit freely. But that's kind of the stuff that first pops into my head about a 14.5-pounder.
That's awesome. That sounds like an epic fight. And, it's like, again, fish a lifetime. It's really cool, too, that you're able to obviously accomplish the goals that you set for yourself in that challenge. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit intimidating. I see you made like a graphic for it and everything. So it's like, well, you've invested the time, you invested all that. And if it didn't happen, I mean, obviously that's a learning experience, but to be able to actually call the shot almost, like I'm going to get you 10, that's pretty impressive. And I guess talk a little bit about how you prepared to go about catching a 10-pounder, because obviously there's more goes into it than just like going out to whatever random lake and just, fishing. How did you, I guess, prepare with your strategies, your tackle, mentally? Like, what was your thought process through that preparation before you even got to the lake?
Yeah, so the first thing, if you're going to target big bass, you have to go to lakes that have them. Of course, every lake in Texas has 10-pounders. And I bet a lot of lakes in Arkansas and Oklahoma have 10-pounders too. But you have to go to lakes that up your percentage chance of actually running into one. And so I went to a lake called OHIV. People around the country should know of it by now because YouTubers were there last year, caught huge ones. There was something like 70 fish over 10 pounds that were recorded caught out there last year. So I thought, I'm going to go there. That gives me, at least from what I know of, the best chance right now of finding a 10-pounder. And then I thought the best chance of putting my lure in front of one is going to be on live scope. It's a controversial topic. People like it, people hate it. But if the goal of this series is not my standard instructional, teaching everybody at once, this is kind of like a personal goal. I've never caught a 10. I'm sick of it. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes and use whatever gear is necessary to make that happen. And so I had lakes OHIV, Lake Fork, Lake Nacogdoches in East Texas, and then a few small lakes in Oklahoma planned that I'm going to go to throughout this series. And I'm not going to spoil how the rest of the series is going so far. I'm not finished yet, but it'll be a really fun series for folks to watch. So the biggest thing, again, going to a place that has 10s. And then, depending on the style of fishery, really targeting your lures based on what exactly you're going to do and not deviating. So if I had gone there and in 8 hours of live scoping, not caught a fish, instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to tie on a chatterbait and go up shallow and just catch some fish, you have to convince yourself, rain, sleet, snow, or hail, like I am going for big ones and I'm okay not catching anything. And that's kind of what I had to do. And luckily on day 2, I got the job done.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And getting a little bit into the actual fish catch itself, I kind of see that you're taking a play out of the John Sukup, Cody Huff playbook on the live scope. I've been out with John Sukup from the Bass Tank, and you guys have probably seen how great he is with the live scope. And I've done it over here as well on some of our power plant lakes and just whatever. But if you watch your video, you'll see that you weren't really doing a lot of even graphing with your big engine or casting. You were just using that live scope to just drive until you saw fish. Can you kind of explain how long that process took, like what went into that to actually find the spot?
Yeah, so from everything I know about that lake, is that the fish are really roamers. So they're roaming around chasing after bait fish in schools, but there's also some individual ones. And so with a lake like that, for a little backstory about that lake specifically, it was at 6% capacity for years. Low, bad drought. So that allowed a lot of brush to grow in the lake, and I'm talking bushes everywhere. It's called a salt cedar, is the specific type of tree bush, and it only grows to a certain height. And with how slow the grade of the lake is, basically all the bushes are in about 18 to 25 feet. So you could graph everywhere around the body of water, and nothing really stands out. You're going to find a few boulders, a few big cedar trees and oak trees here and there, but for the most part, it's just kind of all about the same. Now, there's guys like Josh Jones who have done guiding out there. He spent hundreds of days. So he, of course, and guys like him, locals are going to know where the boulders are, where the steeper drops off of the bushes are, and they might know maybe a higher percentage chance of a fish being there, a big one. But I don't have that luxury, and those guys aren't sharing their spots with the YouTuber. And so I just thought it's best for me to just put my trolling motor on 10, put my head down toward the screen, and for hours and hours and hours, just drive 40, 50 feet, scan, 40, 50 feet, scan. And it's a mind numbing process. There are many times that my mind would zone out, and I'd realize that I trolled 300 feet without checking. But really, I just followed a contour line. I followed the 18 and 25 feet, and every hour or so, you'd find a fish, and it might bite, it might not. You may be going too fast, and your cast isn't accurate the first time, and so you botch that attempt. But eventually, you find a school of few fish that are willing to bite, and like I said, one of them was big, so that was a huge blessing.
That's really cool. And with that live scope, I guess, what the question I'm sure a lot of people, you probably heard Randy Blockett talk about live scope, and he's a regular guest on here, so people have very strong opinions on live scope on this. I'm a live scope fan, kind of, sort of, and I use it obviously on the lake and when I'm on the boat. I guess my question to you is, do you think, like, and be straight up, do you think you would have been able to catch this fish without live scope? If you had just gone out to the lake, would you have caught that fish without live scope if you had that same amount of time to go out and find one?
Yeah, brand new body of water, 2 days, no. I would not have caught that fish. Now, it's possible I could have found the spot. We'll talk about it. It's a spot that you can see on Google Earth if you go back and the lake is lower. But I wouldn't have. So the reason why I stopped on that spot on day 2 is because on day 1, I caught a 7-pounder just off to the side of that spot. And I definitely wouldn't have caught that 7 the first day, because no amount of side scan would have found that 7-pounder, because it was sitting on the top of a field of bushes. There was no rock pile. There was no cut in the bushes. It was just a roaming 7-pounder. So I say no because that first fish clued me in on maybe there's more in the area to go to the next day. So no, I don't think I would have caught that fish without live scope.
Got it. And were you seeing a lot of bait fish around those areas? Or like, I don't even know what type of bait fish or no HIV. Are there big trout or big gizzards? Like, what were you seeing bait in the area? Was that kind of an indicator for you at all?
So from everything I've learned about Ivy is that they do eat your standard gizzard shad and glass minnows and such. But the big thing they eat there is carp, from what I'm hearing. So not the huge carp, but 6 to 8 inch carp is what they eat, and or at least the big ones do. So I was definitely casting at quite a few carp here and there. So yeah, I think I was seeing their forage. But where I saw the fish, the school of big ones that I casted at and caught a 14.5, there was no bait fish present on my screen that I could see.
Gotcha. So they were just roaming out there.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I know they were roaming because the second I got that fish in the boat, those fish were nowhere to be found.
Got it.
So they were gone.
Yeah, that's something we've kind of experimented with in my area and some of the power plant lakes around here. There's just loaded with big gizzards and largemouth, and like we've had days. I mean, I was out there with John Sukup one day, and I had 10 bass over 5 pounds. He caught a 9-pounder. We both lost a fish that we think could have been over 10 that day, both of us, and we were going around this lake, and we're following these schools, these giant roaming schools of fish. And I have a YouTube video on it if you guys want to check up, just Fishing Moment Live Scope. I have a video and you can see all these schools on my Live Scope, and I show you real time of me reeling my bait, following the bait, and I show you how I track it and stuff. But these schools of fish they move 200, 300, 400 yards at a time. And what I was personally doing, and this is just like my style, is I would graph for them first. Now I would graph with my down imaging, and I would just make big passes around these areas, and I would find those fish on my down imaging. Then I would stop, drop the trolling motor, and then spin around and then try to quickly relocate them. And that's how I've been doing it, and that's kind of how John does as well. Did you try anything like that, like trying to down scan for them, or were you just straight up just live scope on them?
No, from everything I hear out there is the fish. I mean, they see a lot of trolling motors now with how big that lake's gotten. When I was out there, probably 40 boats, and it's not that big of a lake. Now, I'm not crossing with people all day. There's enough spots, but they still see a lot of boats. So it seems like if you graph over them, I mean, even if you spin around fast, you might not find those fish.
Got it.
And again, maybe I should have tried to do more down scan and side scan, maybe to find the bait fish, which would include me in on better areas. But in the time that I had, I made the decision just to have the trolling motor on 10. And I covered a lot of water. I would have covered more with the big engine, but I still covered a heck of a lot.
Well, and it still got the job done either way. So I'm just kind of asking just out of curiosity, because it's a strategy I think that a lot of guys probably would like to try, but it's very intimidating. And also what I've realized is that fish will do this behavior where they'll get up in those big groups of big fish and roam in the middle of the lake on a lot of lakes, and especially if you have big forage, whether it's big gizzard shad, like those bigger carp. If you have 4 to 6 inch, maybe even 8 inch size forage, those bass will have that behavior. The problem is it doesn't happen on every single lake. That's what I've noticed, is that there are certain lakes where that behavior is a lot more present. And it's interesting because it doesn't necessarily even need to be on clear water lakes. It happens on dirty water lakes. It happens on stained water. It's very unique, and it's kind of tricky too, because if obviously you had known that some of the YouTubers were catching fish like that, but going to a random lake in Texas, it might even take you a couple days to say, are the fish even exhibiting this behavior? So it's pretty fascinating, pretty niche technique, but it's really cool. Yeah.
And one thing that I've noticed from live scoping at a bunch of lakes is that OHIV is very, very lacking in the trash fish department. So when you're live scoping and you have to stop to cast at things that look big enough to be a bass, you could be casting at a drum, a carp, a gar, white bass, crappie. Those all fit the bill. And from people I talk to, Ivy seems to have some of those, but maybe they haven't been to Dallas lakes, because when you go to Lake Louisville, and my goodness, you see trash all over the screen. And so I think that helps when I wasn't being stopped every, 100 feet to cast something. If I saw something, it was most likely a bass, and that also helps for sure.
Got it. Yeah, that's super fascinating, the whole live scope, finding these suspended fish. Because when I'm doing a lot of my offshore fishing, what I always used to notice, especially on lakes where you have drop-offs, ledges, things like that, which is going to be more of your river systems, man-made lakes, not so much like a natural lake or like in Florida, but you'll see a lot of those fish on your down imaging, side imaging, suspended off of the drops, over the drops and the edges. And a lot of those fish, they will suspend out there, and they're not necessarily aggressively feeding. You can sometimes trigger them with like a swim bait in a certain way, or a floater spoon. You can catch some big ones doing that, but it's a lot less consistent. But it seems like those bass that just get away from all the structure, just get out in the middle and just roam, for whatever reason they seem more catchable. Do you have any idea of why those random wolf packs that swim out there are more catchable than the bass that's suspended next to a drop?
Well, I mean, it's possible that those fish are just of a different mindset. Maybe they're more loner type fish, and I think the reason why Ivy is blowing up right now is because these fish have been in there for a decade, but nobody had live scope. And so the fish that roam, you couldn't find hardly ever. You'd have to get lucky and luck into them, or catch big fish on your standard drop-offs, rock piles, that kind of stuff. So I think these fish are just a different mindset. I don't know. I don't have any science to back that up. But from what it seems, I mean, you can use Cody Huff's pattern on Toledo, that those fish I don't think are brush pile fish. I don't think they're rock pile fish. I think they are roamer fish. And you're going to find maybe they are more of a southern strain than a Florida strain, or whatever the heck they are. But I don't think those fish are going to live most of their lives where other fish do. I think they, for whatever reason, are more transitional.
It's super interesting because obviously on I'm going to share my screen because I like showing graphics, Tyler. That's like my thing.
Yeah.
I think it's fun to show the graphics on the screen. But one thing that I've always tried to figure out about bass fishing, it's not I don't have like a great theory on this, but I'll give you something to think about. One lake that I fished growing up is Lake Washita. If you guys have ever watched any of the Forest Wood Cups, the old FLW, rest in peace, Forest Wood Cup, they used to fish on Lake Washita a lot. And guys would catch fish basically that were in wolf packs. And this happens anywhere you have a bluegill spawn in the summer. It happens on northern lakes, southern lakes, all over the place. And what these bass will do is they'll get in the backs of these pockets and these coves where bluegill are spawning, and they will just roam in wolf packs of 7 to 10 fish. And normally your biggest fish that you're going to catch in the summertime are going to come either on like this roaming pattern where they're just roaming up shallow, or you're going to catch them like randomly schooling or like randomly off an offshore spot. But a lot of the really good tournament fish are caught in the backs of these creeks and pockets with these wolf packs of 7 to 10 bass that just roam down these banks and they feed on these bluegill beds. And I was always wondering, I was like, man, the bass are doing this up shallow, and that's the behavior that they're exhibiting. But I know that bass are also probably doing this offshore somewhere. And over the years, I kind of tried to figure out ways to make this work. And like on Washita, I've caught fish before, like back in some of these drains and ditches and things, and you can follow these fish with, back then I was just using my old, 2D sonar and down imaging and stuff and graphing for them. And you could kind of track them for a bit, throw an Alabama rig at them and catch them, but it was really hit or miss. And I was always trying to figure out, what are these fish doing? These nomadic fish offshore, because I felt like if they're doing it up shallow in 2 foot of water on brim beds, they have to be doing it offshore as well. And part of my whole theory on this is that these bass were roaming on bait fish. So if you found bait fish, you would find these roaming groups of bass. But with live scope, I think that whole theory that I had kind of gets thrown out the window, because I've seen on lakes where I fish that you can still catch roaming schools of fish sometimes when they're not around any bait, like the fish that you kind of talked about when you were out on OHIV. And I don't know if they're just kind of roaming to find the next school of shad. Maybe they're roaming from spot to spot to check like the next drop, like they do with the bluegill beds up shallow. But maybe there could be, in my head, there may be a connection between the bass behavior of those brim bed bass up in the summer up shallow and then those roamers offshore. What are your thoughts on that? Just a theory I kind of thought about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to work with. Again, I wish I had more experience to back this, because most of the time I'm not as big of an offshore fisherman as you are.
Yeah.
So I don't have near as much knowledge or experience offshore fishing. If I do, it's in Minnesota, and those fish are dumb as rocks. It doesn't take much to catch them on a football jig or a 6XD out there. But yeah, I think, again, I'm just going to keep going back to the fact that I think especially bigger ones are as anti the bass book as can be.
Got it.
It seems to me like the true giants don't go by the book. They don't spawn on the same places. They don't feed on the same bait fish as everybody else the same time of the year. And I'm talking about like the 10 plus pounders. Now, I'm not an expert. I've only caught one, and I'll give it to you. It's partly luck that I caught a 14. But from everything I'm seeing in lakes across the country, the big ones are the off-the-wall type patterns. And that's why I decided to spend 10 days just doing off-the-wall stuff that I could get skunked doing. And it worked out for me so far, and hopefully will again here in the series.
Yeah, little teaser right there. Check out again Tyler's channel, Tyler's Real Fishing, over on YouTube. You can search all of his videos, see his recent series, and make sure to subscribe over there so you don't miss any of the rest of his series, which has been really good. I love the intro, all the editing on it's been some really good stuff there. So with all of this big fish, craze going on, we got obviously Milliken fishing going, catching these giants, and there's all these guys with the live scope, they're focused on catching these giant fish. Do you think that there's going to be a way that guys are going to find to catch these fish consistently? And this is all just theory. I know that you're kind of new to this and everything, but like I'm just thinking about like with this type of fishing, obviously it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense right now to try this in like a tournament. But then we also saw like on Lake Fork where I'm blanking on his name. Patrick Walters, catching him out there on Fork, following him around with the live scope. Guys are starting to figure this out. Do you think that there's going to be a time in the next 5-10 years where this becomes the way that guys have to fish tournaments or fish to like go be competitive or in like an event? And obviously you're not like a tournament guy, there's guys, but you follow tournament fishing and you kind of know what's going on. Yeah. Do you think that there's any potential that this could like be so good, or if someone figures it out to a point where there's no reason to go flip bushes or throw a chatterbait in the grass or something like that? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, potentially, I kind of liken it to bed fishing, where it's still possible to win a tournament bed fishing, a multi-day tournament. Alton Jones Sr. did it in North Carolina this past year, but it is very difficult. You got to have a lot of fish to yourself that are very unpressured, and they have to be in the right mood. And that's the thing I've noticed with these live scope fish is that, I mean, smaller ones bite easier for sure, but any fish that is similar, I heard somebody talk to me with Dylan Hayes on the FLW live stream at Rayburn this past week. He was saying, or whoever it was, that he thinks live scope is more like flipping stumps, where if you land 5 feet away from the stump, you're probably not going to catch a fish that's on that stump. And so I kind of think live scope's the same way, but also it's more of I'm trying to think of the words for this. The fish has to be in the right mood, because at Ivy, I was casting at multiple 10-plus pounders a day, and some of them wouldn't even follow my lure. And some of them would, and so I know those are bass, and then occasionally a big one, like a 7.5, caught a few 5s in that 14, would eat. But the fish has to be in the right mood. And I just watched a video today of Kyle Cortiana catching an 11 on an East Texas lake, and he had been casting at a fish on his active target for like an hour and a half. And the fish would leave, and then it would come back, and he eventually caught it, get this, on a Yum Dinger. He was jigging a Texas rigged stick bait, which is not a live scope type lure.
Yeah.
And so that tells me these fish have to be in the right mood. And so winning a 4-day tournament, you have to have a lot of fish that are in the right mood when you drop a lure on them, and that's very rare. I think it works on lakes during certain times, like when Patrick Walters went on Fork, a lot of fish were doing that sort of roaming in the trees pattern. But I don't think that can ever be a consistent tournament winning pattern only. I think it'll be a supplement. I think guys will catch a kicker 2 of the days by going after ones they live scope. But I don't think it'll be the only thing guys do all the time. Unless you're on Champlain or St. Clair, I think that is where you're going to see live scope dominate every time. But besides that, I think it's just a additional thing to your tournament pattern.
Got it. Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think that's probably the right direction. It's just scary to think about if someone, we always say that we don't think that, and then if that becomes the future, then I don't know. That's kind of crazy to think about. And it's not always the most fun way to fish, to be honest. I don't really actually like live scoping all that much. It's a great way to catch them, but like fun, is it that fun? For me, not as much. And I'm an offshore guy. I love graphing, but like I don't know, for me, I'd rather side image a spot, down image it, and then fish it versus just stare at the live scope or follow a fish around. It's almost like catching schooling fish. When they're schooling on the surface and you get in there and the action's great, it's really fun. But when you're sitting there waiting for 3 hours and nothing's happening on the surface, it's really boring. And that's kind of how I feel like live scope is.
Correct. I feel the exact same way about live scope. After this series is done, I won't be live scoping for a while. It is just something that I know you have to do to give yourself, again, the best chance at catching a big one. Could I have caught a 14 without it? Yes. But it gave me a way better chance at catching a fish of that size. And so, of course, I understand that not everybody has live scope, not everybody likes it, and not everybody can afford it. So my channel will not turn into a Milliken-type channel. More power to him. He's going to catch way more 10-pounders than I will in his life. And if that's the direction he's going, that's great. But that's not where I want to go in the future. I would love to keep flipping docks and throwing a frog.
Well, I think it gets interesting because at some point too, you kind of get these new styles, these new different ways of fishing, and there's new styles developing all the time. There's guys like in the winter that only want to throw an A-rig, and that's the way you catch them in the winter, and they're going to go fishing and they're throwing an A-rig all day. And some guys that are like, I hate the A-rig. And then for like me, I love fishing offshore, but like not with live scope that much. And then there's guys who just love only fishing with live scope. Then there's guys who only want to flip. It's all these different styles. I think it's so fascinating as, it's all always a personal thing, but once you get down to it from like a competitive perspective, maybe not all those ways are viable. And that's what I think I really enjoy about YouTube now is that people can still enjoy content and like with the two of us make a living fishing the way that we want to fish, because if we were fishing on the professional tour, we would have to embrace fishing that way, and maybe it's not something we would enjoy or even really be that like down with, but you have to do it to be competitive. And so that is it's just very interesting. I guess it probably was still like that to an extent in the past with some of the offshore stuff, but I feel like it's getting a little bit more polarized now, which is really interesting.
Correct. Now, in all your talks with Randy, does he think, or do you think, your opinion matters too, that shallow fishing could get better as more people live scope offshore?
I 100% believe that. And one thing that I talk to, and this is something I'm already seeing, and I can just kind of give you a little nugget from my what I've been noticing. The shallow water fish haven't really turned all the way around yet where they're getting good. But the offshore fish are getting really bad. Like, I've been fishing almost exclusively offshore for the past 15 years at this point now. Gotcha. And I have seen it come. I've seen the heyday of it where it was like stupid easy that's when I first started when I was like 13 years old, to today where it's as hard as it's ever been to catch a fish offshore. And what I've noticed is, I'm going to pull up a lake here. This is just a little lake that I grew up on, Brewer Lake. And the reason I'm going to show it is because I can take the lake down like 20 feet and show all this offshore stuff. But if we look at this lake, there's a lot of shallow bushes and shallow cover. And back in the day, you could hardly catch a fish just going down, flipping these bushes, because everybody was doing it. Everyone was up in the shallow bushes, and it got way too pressured. And what happened is that if we go back in time, there's a lot of good offshore structure. You can see all of this like really good stuff. You got these old veins of rock, you have road beds, you have brush piles. There's all kinds of craziness out here in the middle of this lake. And when everyone was fishing up shallow, these type of areas, these brush piles out here on these drains and stuff, I mean, you could pull up on any one of them and catch a 4 or 5 pounder almost at will. Well, then fast forward 5 years, everyone watched everyone fish everything. This is a tiny lake, not that big, so all the stuff got found. And now everyone knows how to go out here and fish offshore. Well, I've gone out back there recently, and I cannot catch a fish to save my life, either in the bushes or on these old offshore stomping grounds, like way offshore out here. What I'm having to do is I'm having to fish stuff that's super, super inobvious, to the point where like I'm pulling up and fishing like this sort of like, see how this little hard spot right here? It's in 7 foot of water. You would not think to fish that, but if you really think about it, there's a nice little drain that comes in right here. There's a hard spot right there that's harder than the rest of the surrounding area. Everyone else is going out off this flat to like brush piles that are kind of out here deeper in that 15 to 20 foot range. They're leaving all these little 5 foot little like, a little area right here with a little hard spot or hard spot here that no one's fishing in 4 to 8 foot of water. And personally, that's how I think, and I've noticed, that's how a lot of guys like Brian Thrift, Patrick Walters, Michael Neal, that's how they're catching a lot of their fish offshore in these big tournaments now, is they're targeting 4 to 8 foot when everyone else is fishing 0 to 4 or 8+ feet. And that's kind of like right now, I feel like it's been like that for 2 or 3 years now. This is not a new thing. This is what guys have been doing for a little while now, if you've watched the tournaments and stuff. And now that stuff even is getting hard. Like, I go to Grand Lake, and there's guys on like little shell beds or little rock piles that I was like 3 years ago having to myself and killing them on. And it's to the point now where all of it's kind of getting pressured and none of it's really that good anymore. And the only thing that really is good right now, honestly, are those suspended fish. And that's what happened in this last BPT, the Bass Pro Tour Pro Circuit event. All those guys were catching them suspended with the live scope. The fish that are on the bottom on the hard structure, not really biting in any water depth because it's all getting hammered. Now you're hitting the suspended fish. Well, I feel like at some point those suspended fish are now going to get hammered, and they're going to go back to one of those options. There's really no other options left. It's either be suspended, 0 to 4, 4 to 8, or 8 plus. I don't know which one they're going to go to, but it's very interesting. I always try to think about fishing that way, and I think that at some point, one of those is going to turn back on.
Mm-hmm. I feel the same way, and I think that one of the ways that guys try to combat that, in East Texas at least, is putting out their own brush piles.
Yep.
I don't know the legality of that around the country, but in Texas, it's perfectly legal. And, you might have that brush pile to yourself for 6 months, and then, a group of people will find it, and that brush pile will be no good anymore. So it seems like you've got to litter random spots with brush piles to even have a chance at catching them on offshore structure anymore around here.
Yeah, that's also tricky too, because who has the time to get a chainsaw, cut down a tree, drag it? If that's the way you have to be competitive, is that really fishing anymore? Because at that point, that's just whoever has the flat pontoon boat and the chainsaw.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's so tough. Well, if you were going to go fishing? I know we've been talking a lot about live scope, the big fish, but like Tyler, if you were just going to go fishing, like let's say you're going to go out tomorrow, you could just go any season, you could just pick the perfect conditions for you. What would you just go do and fish? Like, what's your thing?
You're talking about for big ones?
Just anything. Just how you just want to go catch a fish.
You mean my favorite way to catch fish?
Yep. Just if you're going to go catch a bass tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh, it would be on a football jig.
Football jig. Okay. That's what I like to hear.
I love throwing a football jig. At least to me, it's more fun than a Carolina rig because you feel more connected to them. And I just love the hook set with a 7.5 rod, just like really giving them the business. And I just think it's a really, really fun bite. Now, you'll feel a harder thump if you're flipping a jig and, sticks, but I really enjoy almost like that feeling where you're dragging it and all of a sudden it kind of hops up in the air and it's light, like they knock some slack in it, and just being able to reel down and set the hook hard. And, usually your fish is a little bigger average size. So I like a football jig a ton. I like to go a little heavier. I throw mostly a 3/4 ounce football jig as opposed to any lighter ones. And yeah, I'd say football jig for sure.
Well, people on my stream, you know what I'm about to do next. I'm about to recommend a very, very well-made football jig right here to have on my desk, the Fish the Moment offshore jig. Tyler, if you are interested, or anyone who is watching, check out the Fish the Moment offshore jig. This is a really shameless plug, but this is the one I designed for Jewel. But have you ever tried one of these football jigs with the double cable guard on it? The weed guard.
I have not tried that. Most of the time, I'm fishing it around rocks.
Okay, well, if you want to throw a football jig in brush, I have to send you some of these. I designed this one for Jewel. You can literally throw this through a brush pile 20 times and never lose it. It's crazy the way we designed it. But yeah, if you like to football jig fish, that's my favorite way to catch fish in the entire world. Like if I could, I bet at this point I probably caught 3,000 to 4,000 fish on a football jig. Like it's like that's what I throw 50% of the time. I absolutely love football jig fishing. So that's like I was not expecting that because I don't hear a lot of people saying football jigs are a favorite way to catch them.
Yeah, it's well, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but you said if you want to go out there tomorrow.
If you want to go there tomorrow, gotcha.
I've been craving a football jig. I love cranking an 8XD. I love punching a ton.
Yeah.
But to me, tomorrow I'd like to catch them on a football jig.
Nice. That's awesome. Have you got into any of the big swim bait game? That's another question I wanted to ask you because I know that a lot of you guys doing the glide baits, all that stuff. I have not touched it. That's not really my style, but have you been out with any glide bait experts, or you kind of dabbled in that at all?
I have. So I grew up in Austin, Texas, on Lake Austin, which used to be the swim bait mecca. I mean, Austin is the California of Texas, and it's also the California of Texas when it comes to fishing. The swim baits really took over Lake Austin back in the day. It seems to have evolved where you can't throw just a normal glide bait anymore and catch them. You got to do something fancy to it. So I see guys still at Lake Austin throwing a glide bait with a bill, and on the front of it, it hangs almost like a Tokyo rig. They got a weight that kind of helps the glide bait sink closer to the bottom. So I've dabbled, but most of the time it's just a straight, 6 or 8 inch glide bait for me. I haven't caught a whole lot on them lately because the YouTube grind, again, similar to the series, I need to catch fish to make videos. And so you can't commit all the time to a big glide bait because you might not catch anything. And so I haven't fished them as much as I would like, but at least 2 of my 10 days for a 10 episodes coming in March and April will be glide bait, shallow fishing focused. So I'm happy to do that.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I don't think I've ever caught fish on a glide bait, to be honest. I don't even know if I've thrown one enough to even dude, I've people wanted me to, and they've tried to get me out there to do it, but for me, it's just not. It doesn't appeal to me because I'm all about catching fish. I don't. If I have to go 4 hours, 5 hours casting without a bite, that's depressing for me. I normally make 100 casts a day on average when I'm on the lake, and I graph for 6 hours, which probably seems weird because it's I'll go 6 hours between bites driving the boat, but something about casting for 4 hours straight with nothing, that's depressing to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Good deal. Well, a couple of real quick housekeeping tips, Tyler. I just need to go off my audience if we take a quick break here. Give you a second to recollect your thoughts. I wanted to just let everyone know, and I don't know if you've seen this before, Tyler, but I am launched a new fishing app recently. It's called Deep Dive, and it is basically an app that allows you to select a few conditions, and then all the other conditions of your lake are fed into an algorithm that's based on real tournament results. I actually went through and grabbed the actual finishes of the top 3 finishers of every single Bassmaster, FLW, Major League Fishing event for the past 10 years. Then I used a lot of other data that I've pulled on bass behavior to create an algorithm that gives you the top strategies on each lake that you go to based on how the lake sets up, all those things. And it adjusts to the water temperature, water clarity, current flow, lake level, front conditions, wind direction, grass, all these factors. And a lot of guys on the live stream here have downloaded the app, and I want to let everyone know that, one, you can get the app now if you missed that it's actually available. You can just get it on the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, or just go to our website, deepdiveapp.com. That's what this is on the screen right here, and you can actually download the app. But also, a lot of guys download this app with the free version, and they requested their lakes. And with this app right now, we actually are allowing guys to request their lakes to add into the app, and you can select it all. And we started with 350 lakes, guys, on the stream. And over that time, we've added 800 lakes over the past week. There's been 4 of us been working nonstop to add lakes. It takes us 10 minutes-ish per lake. We added 800 of them. So now we have over 1,100 lakes in the app. Some of them are as small as 30 acres. You guys requested. We got them in there. So if you guys are checking out the Deep Dive app and you have the free version and you haven't subscribed yet, haven't checked it out, head over here, check it out, check to see if your lake's there, or if you already have the app downloaded, open up your phone. Your lake is most likely in there if you requested it. If not, it'll be there next couple days. We still have to add a few more. We have 100 more requests, but we're getting those in there really soon. So that is that, and that's all I wanted to throw down. But I don't know if you've seen the app, but it's something that I've been working actually for 2.5 years, Tyler. So it's a pretty cool project.
Very cool. Sounds like you put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was actually out there. I filmed a video on Lake 10 Killer over in Oklahoma, and I was using the app, and because all the strategies are actual tournament strategies, I was basically starting out fishing offshore with a finesse swim bait, and I caught some really good fish, and my electronic completely died. I just got a brand new battery in the boat, and I think somehow it has a dead cell or something, and I had a dedicated battery for my electronics, so all my electronics died. And guys know on the channel, I don't do well with my electronics. So I'm pretty much screwed out here in the middle of the lake. So what I did is I pulled out the app, and I actually went through, and I'm like, okay, what strategies can I fish that are in shallow water that don't require electronics? And I pulled up a jerkbait strategy. Now Randy, who's on the stream sometimes, he's great with a jerkbait. I suck at jerkbait fishing. Just unless I'm doing live scope on a brush pile or whatever, I'm terrible. So I pull up on the spot and checked out the type of points it recommended. It gives you area recommendations like secondary points, what to look for, where in the creek. I literally pulled up on the first spot, caught a 2.5 pounder. 2 points later, caught a 3.5 pounder. I haven't caught a jerkbait fish without electronics in 9 years. So I was so pumped because it the app actually works, and that's I was basically a test dummy because I'm so hopeless up shallow, and it works. So if I can catch a fish on a jerkbait up shallow in the wintertime, guys, you can go do it too because I'm terrible at that. So check out the app.
I wouldn't say you're hopeless up shallow. I bet you're better than a lot of people on YouTube at fishing shallow. You just don't like to do it.
what Randy always says. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I don't know. I grew up fishing the Arkansas River, so I have that shallow, muddy water. I love that sort of stuff, but like shallow, clear water, man, that trips me up. I'm terrible at like shallow, crystal clear water. If there's more than 6 inches of visibility, I don't like it if I'm fishing.
Yeah, I feel.
Now, you fished a lot of those lakes like Lake Travis and stuff. I'm sure you kind of grew up in that clear water up shallow. That's probably right up your alley.
I did, yeah, and of course I grew up having to back off a little bit. Didn't catch them as shallow as you might think. You know, I caught a lot of fish in that 8 to 15 growing up, but I'd say clear water is definitely where I feel most comfortable. I've grown to like dirty water, but I still would prefer to fish a little deeper and a little slower.
Gotcha. Yeah, the dirty water lakes, like I fished Lake Dardanelle and Arkansas River growing up, and those lakes are tricky because it's not so much. Those fish don't school up nearly as much. They do some places, but it's where you get more stained water than the real clear water. But yeah, that stuff's tricky because you can go for hours flipping grass or frogging or whatever and just nothing. And then all of a sudden you just land on them and it's great, but there's sometimes no rhyme or reason to it, which is kind of frustrating at times.
Yeah.
Good deal. And then one question from Michael here. Actually, Michael, we did see your request over here about your Google Play card. We don't handle the payments on the app, so we don't know with the Google Play Store and everything. I think the team had sent you an email. If not, then we were trying to figure out what the problem was. But I would reach out to Google Play Store about that gift card that you had because we don't handle the payments, unfortunately. But hopefully that will... you can get that resolved, and if not, just shoot us in your email, and we'll try to send over that link to where you can do that. Awesome. So that is... I'm just trying to go through some of the comments here real quick, because we do need to find the Bridgeford giveaway.
Beef jerky winner.
Yeah, so let's just take a second here, Tyler, and just scroll through and see if there's anyone who has a comment that you like that maybe would need some good luck beef jerky.
Well, I love to do giveaways based on things people should know, a little trivia.
Okay.
So hopefully someone can answer, and if nobody answers, then we'll have to pick a different winner. But you know, people who have watched the channel know I just broke my PB, 14.49. But anybody know, you can either tell me how much my previous PB weighed or what lure I caught it on. It was a video that's got 100,000 views from back in the day. I caught it in a pond at a summer camp I worked at. So if anybody can say the pounds, the blank, point blank blank, or the lure I caught it on, you will win the packs of beef jerky. And I'd like some beef jerky as well, so I'm going to throw myself in there.
I know the answer to this, actually. I do know the answer.
Really?
I do know the answer.
Oh, Ben Nowak was close. Ben, you were close.
Ben is in here. What is up, man?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I don't know the bait, but I do know the weight because I remember it because you put a little clip of it in that last video, and I got a pretty good. So if you watch this last video, it's in there. It's in there.
If you watch, people are saying chatterbait. I did not catch it on a chatterbait. Did not. Nope, not a chatterbait. Man, let's see what people.
People are thinking that it's at 9.59 on the chatterbait. Maybe they're thinking, is that a different? A different
I have not,
big
I have
one?
I have not caught a 9.59. Not a drop shot. Hey,
Andy. I knew that one. 9.85.
Yep, Andy, you are the winner of the beef jerky pack. Congratulations.
Nice job, Andy. Yeah, 9.85. I remember that because you had the GoPro shot of you holding the scale like this, and you're like 9.85. Good deal. Yeah. So Andy Leonard, if you are still listening, I'm sure you are. You can just email us at info@fishthemoment.com. That's info@fishthemoment.com. Just email us, send us your mailing address, and then we'll actually have Bridgeford send a free case of Bridgeford beef jerky straight to your house. It doesn't come from us. It comes straight from their factory. So it's fresh, off the line, beef jerky, straight to your house. So just send us email, info@fishthemoment.com with that, and we'll get that squared away for you. Big shout out to Bridgeford for sponsoring the live stream. And again, I've heard through the grapevine that there's a better chance of catching a 10-pound bass if you eat a bag of beef jerky. I think it's maybe because you just slow down because you're over there, soaking that jig a little longer or whatever it is, but it's something to it.
That's awesome.
It's like those guys back in the day, and I always heard this. I don't know if you ever heard this before, but there was some guys that my old fishing partner, actually, when I was in Wisconsin, he swore by the fact that he caught more fish when he smoked cigarettes than when he didn't. And he chain smoked cigarettes, like a pack while we're on the lake. Whenever we get into an area and the fish are about to bite, he's like, oh, we're in a good area. And he pulls one out. And his theory is that he fishes slower when he has a cigarette. If he doesn't have his cigarettes, he fishes too fast. Now, I don't know if that was the actual reason, but like apparently that's a big deal where, slowing down with the cigarettes. So maybe if you guys don't want to smoke, I know I don't smoke, not a proponent of smoking, but I am a proponent of some Bridgeford beef jerky, so maybe it has a similar effect. I'm not 100% sure though.
Yeah. I think another similar effect is getting on your phone. It seems that whenever I have my rod in the wrong hand and my phone in the other, I feel a bite and I'm fumbling to safely put my phone back in my pocket and set the hook.
That's awesome. Yeah, the thing that's really interesting. So I actually last year I caught my first double digit, my first 10-pounder, and I caught it. I actually never posted a video about it because I went out and I was just screwing around. I was doing some social media work, some pictures and stuff like that, and I picked up a rod and I turned on. I had one GoPro that I turned on. I didn't have anything else. I just had like a dash camera with a GoPro, and I was throwing a jerkbait over this brush pile, and just happened to. I caught a 5.5-pounder in the first cast. I caught a 10-pounder on my second cast, and I was freaking out. But like I have like the footage is not great of it or anything, and like I have pictures of it and everything. But like I literally caught a 10-pounder and did not. I never posted, so I'm probably need to make a video now. Like you're inspiring me to like actually pull the footage out of the vault because it was almost this time last year, and I caught it the Smithwick Perfect 10 Rogue over a brush pile.
Gotcha, very awesome. Yeah, dude, put that content out.
I'm so slow on my content, man. I try really hard. People always ask me, they're like, "What do you do? How do you like get your content out? Why don't you get it out faster?" And guys, every video that you see me post is every time I go fishing. I literally never go fishing without posting a video about it because I go fishing that infrequently. And so whenever I'm posting like my catch 15 challenges that I do where I go catch 15 pounds, if I zero, I show it. If I catch them, I show it. If I catch 2 fish, I show it because I don't have enough time to go fishing often. So that was the one rare time I actually got to go out without the cameras rolling. And then, of course, I catch a 10 in that one time. So
that's usually how it goes, yes.
Good deal. So, Tyler, we're about to be out of time here, but I do want to give you a chance. Obviously, got to pay the bills here as a YouTuber and all that stuff, and so I want to give you a chance just to let people know about your channel. If you have any sponsors or anything like that, happy to give you a chance to kind of talk through some of that stuff because I know that some guys here are probably new, haven't seen you before. And again, this is Tyler Anderson from Tyler's Real Fishing. Make sure you go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Watch him catch some giant fish and just some good instruction. But Tyler, the floor is yours for a few more minutes here.
I appreciate it, man. So I love doing natural promotion. So I don't like to do a whole lot of hardcore stuff, and especially on your live stream, we got a few competing sponsors. So I don't want to name any sponsors that are competing.
Gotcha.
But I love to preach, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I love to preach the video description. That both on your channel and mine, I'm sure you have affiliate links.
Yeah.
Where if people are shopping for Amazon things or tackle things or whatever, any link that we have, even if it doesn't have a discount, it is a way to help support our channels. So if you're wondering what's the best way, buying merch is great, and supporting and buying, your football jigs, that kind of thing is great for our sponsors. But a huge, way that we make money is by affiliate income. And so if you just are ordering tackle and you can take 1 second to click through any of our tackle links, that'll help us both, I'm sure, make income and keep making videos for you guys. The only way that I can travel around the country and catch fish is because I have awesome viewers. And so I could talk about sponsors all day, but the video description with those links is important, and also any information you want to know. So what, type of structure I was fishing around, or I try to do conditions. I'm sure you have more of that than I do because I get busy and forget. But video description is just a great place to hang out and will definitely aid in your video watching. But I make it my goal to help everybody catch more bass. So, I do offshore stuff. I do shallow stuff. I love to fish in every region of the country. So I try to make videos every year in Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Alabama, New York, Michigan, Minnesota, North Dakota. I mean, I try to hit a ton of states that I kind of make my milk run. So I've most likely fished a lake that's similar to yours and bass that are similar to yours. So that's kind of my pitch. I just go all over the place and try to make my videos as basic as possible.
Awesome. That's some good stuff. So guys, definitely check out Tyler over there, Tyler's Real Fishing on YouTube. Follow him over on social media as well. You'll probably see him sometimes with some of his sponsors. He'll pop up some Instagram takeovers and all over the place. He's all over the place. You'll definitely see him. So definitely give support over there. And we need to try to get out in the boat sometime. Tyler, get some fishing content together too as well.
We do. I've told you, man, my Minnesota swing, I know a lot of good lakes up there that you can do whatever videos you want. If you want to challenge Randy to a shallow video or shallow challenge and he fishes down in Arkansas and you fish in Minnesota, you can beat him, I'm sure. So I'll get you on some good fish.
To be fair, I'm going to beat him here too, but
okay,
just burning him while he's not here. Go let Randy know. Johnny's dissing him in the live stream.
I won't let him know. You're good.
Anyways, awesome. Well, again, Tyler, thanks so much for joining tonight. Thanks for giving the audience some really good ideas on the big fish, and I think it's always good to get different perspectives. I sometimes just like to bring on the same guests just because it's easy sometimes, but I always try to learn from other anglers, because obviously nobody's going to know everything about bass fishing even close. I don't pretend to know everything about bass fishing. I know a lot about one very specific part of bass fishing, and I think it's always good to bring other people on for those different perspectives. And so again, really appreciate that and appreciate all the info you've shared over the years. I'm sure it's helped a lot of guys on here be better fishermen, and hopefully you guys are enjoying all the content. So Tyler, thanks again for joining the live stream, and hopefully we'll see you maybe on the lake sometime and in one of the main channel videos.
Totally. I'd love to be there.
Cool. Well, thanks again, guys, and hope you have a great night. See you next Tuesday, same time, same place, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, here from Fish the Moment Live. Have a great night.